the control structures that are available in C. Basically, what is the need for a control structure in C? We know that a program is a set of statements that has to be executed in a certain order or sequence. But there is sometimes always a need for us to change the sequence of execution of the statements. It is not necessary that the statements have to be executed one after the other. Sometimes we may have to jump from one line to the third line to the fifth line and back to the first line. So when a need arises like that, then we go in for these control structures. The basis of any application involves altering the flow of program, altering the flow of the program in the sense a program has a set of statements. So instead of going through the program one after the other, we may have the need to jump from one line to some lines that are maybe 10 or 15 spaces behind. There may be a reason, a need for us to test certain logical conditions. For example, if a certain value is less than a threshold value or more than a threshold value, depending upon that we may have to execute a set of statements. So in such cases also we need these control structures when we have to control the flow of execution. So what does this mean, control the flow of execution? Sometimes we may have to execute the same set of statements 3 or 4 times. Instead of just executing it once, there may be a need for us to execute it time and again. So in that case we need to have a control on how many number of times a set of statements have to be executed. So that is also one reason why we need these control structures. All these conditions, all these possibilities of altering the flow of execution, testing logical conditions and making statements execute in a repeated manner, all these is possible only when we have these decision making statements or control statements and structures. So these control statements also have another name called decision control statements. There are basically two types, one is decision, another one is loop. So in this session we will be seeing about the decision control statements. So what do? They check a given condition. Now this satisfies the second need for a control structure, the testing of some condition, and based on the result of the test we execute the program. So based on the condition it executes a subblock. A subblock is nothing but a small subset of the main program. It is not the full program but a few statements from that main program. So this decides the statement to be executed based on the success or failure of the condition. So the decision making statements decide the statement that is to be executed based on the success or failure of the particular test condition. For example, say if we say that if the value x is less than 2, then we have to do a set of statements, and if it is greater than 2, then another set of statements. So based on the condition, the particular set of statements are executed in the C program. Now if you see, this is totally different from what is a normal sequence of execution. You start from the main function and one after the other you go through the statements in a sequence. So when we want this sequence to be altered based on some condition, then we go in for these decision control statements. Now based on the decision, the control in execution is exerted. So that is why it gets its name as decision control statements.